Jen Nix is a journalist and an activist with Roots Action. She's going to have one of the mics and play Phil Donahue. So is my cousin Sharon in the corner are the two mics. She's going to be Phil. She's a Jewish Voice for Peace activist and a Bernie activist from Detroit. Okay. That's, you know, and let's have a diverse group. I just wanted to say, how many people watch Young Turks? Jordan just interviewed me, asked a good question. He said, at this event, we're talking about how many people in the room are planning on running for office in their locales. Well, Jordan asked a good question. After the Bernie campaign and the independent media is up and social media is up and corporate media is unethical, how many people do you think out of this movement are going to decide, I'm going to do media work, I'm going to be a citizen journalist? How many in this room? Okay.
Hello. How do we build an audience?
A good question. First, don't think about numbers, right? First, you already have an audience. First of all, it's probably your friends and your family, and don't neglect the value that's already built in right there. Before I ever had the following or the audience that I have now, my friends and family in a very closed network saw me as like a reliable voice on several issues, like police brutality, mass incarceration. I've been talking about that my entire adult life, and I had grown to be a trusted voice for my closed network of family and friends on issues that mattered to them, and to the point that they wanted to share what I was doing with their family and friends. And so it's about faithfulness to the audience that you already have, right? If you do follow me on Twitter or Facebook, I say all the time, it's not about numbers, it's about people. And knowing what the people who already follow you, knowing what they need to hear, should hear, and communicating with them in a way that you know will resonate with that group. And I post, just as a real technical piece, like I post all of my content natively on Facebook. All my stuff goes live on New York Daily News, but New York Daily News has given me permission to share all of my content also completely on Facebook. So I would recommend that if you want to be in media, or if you have something to say it with great depth natively there on Facebook, and begin to build your audience there, interact with people when they leave comments. I know that's basic stuff, but I try to go deep with the audience that I have and allow them to do the work of sharing it with people that they know and care about.
Yeah, I'll add one quick thing. The internet, of course, is a lot of noise. There's a lot of stuff going on, and it's hard to cut through and distinguish. Form a niche. Become an expert on something.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Just sitting at your computer, you can do a lot. There are millions of documents that can be FOIA'd. You can follow an Information Request Act. It doesn't take an expert to do this. You can learn how to fill out the form and file for police documents. You can go to, a lot of courthouses now are digitized. You don't have to go and wait in line and sift through documents. You can go on a database and get them within seconds. And these are documents that potentially no one else has seen, and you can analyze them, you can upload them, you can make them publicly accessible. Just using Google, you can find things that are sitting in plain sight and haven't been identified and analyzed and presented to the public. And in your community, if a protest happens, if a misdeed happens, but no one's there to document it, no one's there to live stream or take a picture or to record it in some way and represent it, that's good. You can be that person. Yeah. And by providing a value, being an expert on something, or just simply doing the work that other people are not doing, you are distinguishing yourself. And from there, you can stand out, and you can be that voice that other people turn to.
True.
As
Short questions
okay,
or
yeah.
comments?
As we shift towards the conventions that are coming up, we've seen the way that the media has covered protests and how they're looking for blood or violence, knowing that we are peaceful people, whether we're coming from Black Lives Matter or whether we're Bernie supporters, especially the DNC, they're going to be looking to label Bernie supporters as radical or violent. What's the way that we can help shape the narrative of how can we help shape the narrative of the peaceful protests? What are things that we can do that will be juicy, maybe whether it's stories coming out of the conventions that don't result in violence or blood?
Stop me if you've heard this lead before. Protests at insert location here descended into violence on Tuesday night. How many times have y'all read that lead? Hundreds. I have read it hundreds. That exact sentence. It tells you absolutely no information. It means nothing. Who descended into violence? What? Where? When? How? Like, it's literally nothing. Does violence mean somebody got run over by a cop car? Does violence mean somebody broke a window? Like, that is my least favorite sentence in all of media. I would like to ban it. That said, there are certain things that will get you attention. Some of them are, you know, unfortunately, not the things we really want people to be doing. But, you know, my book title comes from something that John Lewis said, and he said, sometimes you gotta find a way to get in the way. If you are disrupting business as usual, that usually gets you some attention.
Just one other thought on that is I think some of the protests that have a lot of pageantry and joy and celebration to them, that makes it a much more difficult story for it to turn into just a bunch of violent hooligans.
Okay, we should get a mic over this half of the room. Oh, all right.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you all for everything you do. I'm gonna make it short. Equal access to information is one of the basic assumptions of capitalism for it to work, that people have enough information to make decisions. So when I attended my first Sanders rally and I didn't see anything about it in the media, I didn't see the scale of it, and I didn't see his appeal, and I didn't see any live coverage of him speaking to his own platform, not a pundit spinning it, my stomach lurched, because that's when it kind of hit me. And then I'm thankful for all of you, and you, Jordan, and the Young Turks, for offering another platform for me to gather information and seek out that truth. Social media, yes, absolutely, is that democratic platform to share information and citizen journalism. But with recent developments with Google, as social media platforms have actually become more mainstream, they also have interest in that are corporate. So with the algorithms that we're talking about, Facebook trending, not seeing Bernie for the first time until after California in my trend feed, my stomach lurched again. And so my question for you is, how does my stomach not lurch again? What can we do as citizens? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'll jump in there. It's a complicated problem, a multi-layered problem, and it is a problem. And I'm at least glad that all of us are aware that it exists. And it's not just like, I hate to be sympathetic to conservatives, but I was watching very carefully when conservatives were voicing their frustrations about not being in the trending topics on Facebook, right? It doesn't help that a lot of what trends in conservatism is often really ugly, and I think the editors at Facebook were just choosing not to trend that. But there are two things. One is institutional. Like, and it's a big issue. Some of us need to be in mainstream media. We can't all be independent journalists. We can't all be out on the outside. Some of us need to do the really hard work. Even if you're not an on-air personality, but a decision maker, you need to do that hard work to be there to make sure. And some of it is technological. We need to be on these editorial boards at places like Facebook and Twitter and others, which we know, and when we talked about earlier, these companies, Twitter and Facebook in particular, are overwhelmingly white, overwhelmingly male. And then when the groups who make the decisions on what trends represent that demographic, like for instance, there is not a Black Lives Matter tag on Facebook. Like, I thought that was fake. Or you can't, for instance, you can't tag, like you can tag photos with all types of celebrity names and stuff like that. And you can tag like any random crappy chef. But you can't tag me. It's like weird. It's weird. Well, you can tag my page, but there's like this database. You can't tag like Black Lives Matter is not a choice. Shaun King is not a choice. And but Rocco DiSpirito is a choice. And, but then lastly, I do still believe in the power of petitions and the power of raising a fuss over the things that bother you. Yeah. Facebook held a meeting with 20 deeply conservative men and women over their frustrations. And most of them left that meeting feeling like, oh, I think we got through to them. When they were shocked at how open and bright and responsive Zuckerberg was. And, so if that's a real problem, we have to communicate it.
Google can't hide behind this idea that they have a neutral algorithm.
Right.
The Wall Street Journal had a great story a couple of years ago, or maybe it was a year ago, where one of their reporters did a FOIA request to the Federal Trade Commission, and the Federal Trade Commission officer responding to that records request accidentally sent a confidential study of a preliminary investigation of Google, showing that Google had manipulated their algorithm to crush competitors, to scrape certain business websites and then put them into Google Shopping so that those other business websites couldn't compete with Google, doing other things in the Google search to make it difficult to find other search engines, obviously. So that's a clear issue. But this gets into the broader discussion of we need better media institutions. The current economic model does not work. You have these big, massive telecom and media conglomerates that just keep buying up and downsizing media companies, and you have a number of independent media outlets that are just completely reliant on foundation grants and that type of thing. So we need a larger discussion of how we fund sustainable journalism. I mean, do we have some type of, societal voucher that is given to each society, just like public financing of elections? Could you have public financing of your local institution? That's an idea that's been presented. I mean, there are a lot of concepts up there that are not part of the discourse now, but looking into the future, we really need to talk about how do we build a more sustainable media model.
And if mainstream media is literally turning your stomach, I used to get ulcers before I started FAIR. I encourage you're the perfect person to join the FAIR activism list and fight back together, because you might notice the New York Times did not do what the TV networks did. The TV networks prominently included the superdelegates from day one. The 350 superdelegates that Hillary Clinton had before Iowa and New Hampshire even voted. But the New York Times, where FAIR and other groups had done sort of a pressure campaign, the New York Times always led with the elected delegates on their, and that's media activism.